Peace and blessings, everybody. I wanted to create some video content about emotionally, spiritually, high consciously, esoterically, what is happening. Because what I am seeing is, this is a real purge of a shadow. Like, it is a collective shadow. So it is happening in the collective and it is happening in our inner world. So, and what prompted this is I was just seeing a lot of hate recently on Twitter about just this woman, Amy Cooper. And someone made a comment about she should be ruined or something like that. Like people were just like really ripping her. And I get it. But where we're headed as a planet, treating people with hate who hate you, is just a repeated cycle of karma. We have to know that what's happening in the collective is an old timeline. This is like beyond this lifetime. So this conversation in this video will be very multidimensional, very esoteric. So if these things are not for your heart, I guess, or if you don't have room to hold on to what we're going to discuss, this is not for you. And I say that because some of the shit that I've downloaded and have experienced in my dream state is fucking wild. Like to be able to astral travel really questioned, or really had me question, like, what is human? And why the fuck are we all suffering? Like, why are we all mad? Like, do y'all realize, like, we are literally the creators of our own reality? And so I guess, like, that's what people call the spiritual awakening, right? So what is happening in the collective is the Great Awakening. So for y'all, like, I know some of y'all like, I've been woke, I was born woke, cool. So you're probably good. But for those who are still living in this 3D, trying to get to 4D into 5D, where we're leaping to, it's not to say that it ends in this dimension of fifth dimension, because there's so many more dimensions. But this leap, this process that's happening in the on Gaia and in the universe, I guess, of sorts, is we are shifting. Like, planet Earth is shifting into a higher dimension. And so this hate energy, this just, it doesn't fit there. It is like an old programming that will not fit into the file. Like, the thumb drive won't work in 5D. So what happens is that you're going to have to get rid of it. So which means that if we don't start vibrating from a heart space, from a unity conscious place, we'll have to reset, because where there is death, there is life. There's not one with the other. Death is an illusion in itself. Like, if we're talking about multidimensional and past lives, and there's no such thing as time, all of this is happening at the same time. So for most of us, who are the what people call the light workers, the shadow workers or whatnot, who are here to awaken and have, had to really go through our shadows and dark nights of the soul, and still, like, there is programming in there that we're still shedding. But I think and even why I'm even doing this video, because to be honest, like, to really put yourself out there, and I made an Instagram story about this, but like, to really put yourself out there, like, esoterically, and just like super vulnerable, and just tell everybody about who you are, your experiences in life, is pretty intimidating, for one, because we've also have been dealing with past pain from other lifetimes where we have been killed for the things that we talk about. So there is fear there of, I'm going to be prosecuted. And I've actually seen myself die, like, someone cut my throat. And to experience your death in that part of your soul is something beautiful, but also has to be grounded. So I guess that's what I'm also want to say here. If you're listening to this or you're consuming this information, make sure you ground yourself afterwards, because we're really opening up our third eye and our clairs of just like, what is this dimension and where we're going? And I think the importance here is just checking in with ourselves, because the world that we're seeing is also a projection from our inner world and like what we're here to do. So when we manifest things that are challenges, whether they're big or small, there is a lesson there. And sometimes it is a cycle that we're here to break. So when people say like, oh, my ancestors' wildest dreams, but the thing is, like, we are, because in a sense we are breaking those curses. Like it's kind of like there was a curse of sorts, or there was a sort of shift in consciousness that had to happen on the planet for the process of evolution of human. Polarity had to be born, and it was born in a way where man embodied ego, where they saw themselves separate from one another, and we lost that unity consciousness. But that unity consciousness did exist, and it still exists in the time of Lemuria, which is one of the reasons why I came back and I'm in this timeline with those who are watching this, because I'm called to remember. I'm called to remember the wisdom and the healing and how we lived, and to experience that. And I mean experience through meditation, through dream states, like having past life remembrance downloads, or like I'll be doing something and I just get this huge vision of me doing this in another lifetime and I look different, or I'll have a vision of something that I was asking spirit about. Like I can ask spirit about something and the download will come, or the synchronicity will come, and I'm like, holy shit. So when you develop that language with the universe, again, for me, it's always been, maybe that's a Sagittarius self of mine as well. It's like, so what else are we capable of doing, right? Like, and who are we? And like, what is this planet? And obviously that comes with a lot of like the dark night of the soul. So like, this is what it's happening, but we're like, yeah, this is that dark night of the soul. For like this decade to come, like between this year and next year, there's gonna be a lot of shadows purging. Like I literally, like my dream state last night was wild. And I'm fasting, I'm on day 5, and my dreams have been really intense downloads. And I literally woke up from my dream and I just prayed. I prayed for strength to face what is to come. It was like shameful truth. I just saw a lot of things that were just makes your stomach turn. And I think a part of me was just like, well, I don't want to put that out there and like program or like put those vibes out there. So like, cause like that's also like, I don't want to say it's creating a fear, but it is talking about a polarity and a shadow that really does exist. And so for me, I went searching for truth in that sense. And a book that I am almost done with is Edgar Cayce on Atlantis. And prior to that, I was reading a book on Lemuria. I'm being corrected. And in there, they talked about just the fall of Lemuria and Atlantis, and that shift that happened, and why it happened, and certain things that happened, and how we used to, and how why the fall happened in a way that, how do I want to say this? In this book, when I went on my path of remembrance for Lemuria, it talked about why the fall happened and where the disconnection of unity consciousness happened, especially in the time of Atlantis. And in that book, they talked about like what they used to do to humans and like how they used to treat them. And they would make hybrid humans. They would interbreed humans with animals. and to make slaves. So slavery started millions and millions of years ago, if you want to think of time. But where we're moving to, it's dissolving that old program, that old timeline that's kind of like cycling in, I guess, the auric field or in the ethers of how we mistreat one another as human and how we don't see one another as equals or as unity, as gods, as, you know, that person is part of you, that person's pain is your pain, you know, their love is your love, everybody's your beloved, you know, type of shit. And like, I guess a lot of people, or I guess spirituality in a sense, has gotten like a real bad rep when we talk about these things. So I think as people of color, we've kind of turned away from opening ourselves to those possibilities. But I was listening earlier to like Kendrick Lamar and stuff, and the things he talks about is like hella woke, and it's very channeled. And it's kind of like codes, like he's planting seeds. And if you start to, like, a lot of us know these things, but to have time to embody them is a whole other thing. But because of quarantine, we have time to embody it now. And that is the magic that's happening right now. And that's how we should be treating this, as like a real fucking pause. Like, just stop. Stop what you're doing. If what you're trying to do right now at this moment is fucking up over and over again, or you can't find the context that you want, or you're trying to hustle some shit and it's not working for you, let it go. It's this attachment that we have as humans that, like, I don't know, we're programmed in a way that is always looking for satisfaction outside of self. And we don't really see the God within us. And the God within us, it's infinite. It's beautiful. Like, to be in meditations, I've had the most crazy experiences here in St. Thomas in meditations of healing. Like, oh my God, like, it's an out-of-body experience. And I know that's where we're moving to. So going back to just the hate programming, and I say programming because this reality is made up. Like, all of this is an illusion. Like, and we're seeing it in the media because it's all fear-based. And if it doesn't come from love, it doesn't exist. So fear is an illusion. And yes, that is a mindfuck, but just allow it to sink in. Like, pretend it could be a possibility, you know? Like, what could be so bad? Let me take that back, because I understand in order to really start to move into that fifth dimensional timeline, if you choose to in this lifetime, because one way or another you will as a soul. So that's the other thing too, is to remember, if there's such thing as lifetimes, do you really want to come back and do this again? Like, I wouldn't. That means you have to be like reborn. You have to learn how to talk and walk, and some people got to clean your shit. Like, people don't have time. I don't have time for that. I don't want to come back and do that. So I think taking that decision of like, oh no, like, if I understand that I've been reincarnating because I forgot the God within myself, and I have this wisdom, I gotta be about it. So again, I know that's tricky for people because sometimes we don't have space for it. Like, some of us really don't have enough genuine space to really do the shadow work, and I get it, but there's also a way to move that reality that will work for you once you bring light to the shadow, because everything is a process. It's not about to say like they're less woke or than the other person. What I'm starting to understand too is that we live in a world of polarity, and what's happening is that the shadow side had kind of like taken over of sorts, dark energy, you want to call it. And what is happening now, it is literally like balancing. It's like the yin and the yang, right?